Hey, what's going on guys, and welcome back to another Genshin Impact video. Today, I wanted to talk about something that I get asked a lot on stream, and that is, hey, I just got Childe, can he work well with Diluc? Hey, I just got Childe, can he work well with Razor? Hey, I just got Childe, can he work with any X character? Can I use Childe as a support unit, and does he pair well with any of these characters? Guys, the answer is yes. Okay? Now, if you guys don't know how, or don't understand how, I'm going to give you a very brief demonstration, essentially. So the thing is, as a support, Childe has two functions. The first one is being a nuke. His ulti does a ridiculous amount of damage. Now, the melee version does a little bit more damage, and by a little bit, I mean 120%, but still, let's just pretend it's a little bit. However, with support Childe, you're not going to be in your melee stance very often. You're not going to be playing him or have him on the field out for very long. So I highly suggest that you use the ranged ulti a little bit more often, because that way you get 20 energy back, and that becomes a 40 energy cost cooldown. So that way you can get to use him a lot more. The other function that Childe has is a Hydro Applier, okay? So basically, you're going to go into his melee stance, proc his passive on as many enemies as possible, and then you're just going to dip and swap to your DPSs. If you have a Pyro main DPS like Diluc, for example, you're going to want to apply Pyro first, because Vaporize does more damage if you proc it with Hydro. However, if you are going to be using someone like Razor for Electro Charge, or you're going to be using Chongyun, then you're going to want to use Childe first, because that way they get to be the ones that pop off the damage. Because if you use Childe first with Chongyun, for example, you apply Cryo, then you apply Hydro, then he applies Cryo, they get frozen, and since he's a Claymore user, he can then go ahead and break them out of the Shatter. And if you're going to be using Razor, then you're going to apply Hydro with Childe, just to get everybody wet, and then you're going to swap to him, you're going to proc the Electro Charge with him, and hopefully he has a little bit more Elemental Mastery than mine. But after you proc Electro Charge on him, then you can keep going to town and attacking enemies. You don't have to swap out, you can just immediately start going into doing damage to them. So just to give you a quick little demonstration of basically how it goes, in this case I'm going to be using him as a wet applier, so these enemies, oh, I guess my Childe is kind of cracked, I'm not going to lie. But anyway, the point is that there you see, they're wet, they're just frozen, and now I can just go ham. So that's essentially the way that it goes, for Chongyun at least. Now like I said, if you're going to be using him as a support for a Pyro main DPS like Klee or Diluc, you're going to want to use the Pyro application first, and then you want to go into him, because the Hydro Vaporize proc does way more damage, as you can see right there. Now, when you're swapping into an Electro DPS, it doesn't really matter which one you're going to be doing, but I like applying Hydro first, because that means I don't have to waste time during the Electro Charge proc to swap back to my DPS. So I simply just, well, apply, boom, and then I can just straight up go to town. They're taking damage from the Electro Charge proc, and now I'm just beating their ass in, basically. So there's really no wasted time here. I think this is a little bit more optimal if you're looking for, like, the highest source of DPS. But in reality, it shouldn't matter too much. That's just going to be my tip for you guys, basically. Now, how does a main DPS Childe compare to a support Childe in terms of, like, gear? Well, essentially, your choice of weaponry is pretty much the same. I mean, you still do a decent amount of damage as him, but in this case, you would rather have the Stringless. The Stringless is going to increase the explosion damage of your E, and it's also going to increase the damage of your ulti by a pretty significant amount. At Refinement 1, I think it's 24%. Yep, 24%, and then 48% at Refinement 5, which is pretty ridiculous. The Favonius Warbow is another weapon that's really good for this, because it gives you energy recharge as a substat, and also you do want to be critting as much as possible, so this is going to give you even more energy, since you're going to be critting anyway. If you don't have any good weapon, then you can just use a Raven Bow, honestly, I'm so sorry, but this will give you Elemental Mastery, which is pretty good, and it's also going to increase the damage that you deal against enemies that are affected by Hydro, which is you, basically, or Pyro. So if you're in a Vaporized comp, this is pretty much always going to be up, and it's really good. Other than that, the only other thing you have to take into consideration are your artifacts, which is Noblesse Oblige in this case. you want to buff up that damage quite a bit. Something else that you could use is also the Exile 2-piece set bonus, which gives you 20% energy recharge, or Scholar, which has exactly the same passive. So basically, you just want to spam your ulti as much as you can. And that's about it, honestly. Guys, I know this isn't really like a detailed guide or anything like that, but it's really just as simple as that. There's not a lot of complications. And I'm not going into, I'm not going in deep into how Childe works as a character. If you just rolled Childe and you're wondering if you can fit him into your team comp, he is a really, really good unit for just being a off DPS. And he's also really good at applying Hydro to a large amount of enemies. So, if the enemies are too far away from Mona's taunt and you don't want to use her to apply Hydro, you could also just use him. His ulti honestly deals a shitload of damage. It's really, really strong. If you apply Pyro and then you ult, I'm guaranteeing you anything is going to die. And he's also hella good for Chongyun because you can just walk around, apply your Hydro to all the enemies in the area, and then freeze them and break them out with the Claymore. So yeah, guys, that is essentially the guide to Childe support. And I hope you guys found this video useful or entertaining. If you did, then be sure to drop a like, and also subscribe. Most people that watch my videos are not subscribed, so it would really mean a lot if you guys subscribe. Also, I stream pretty much every single day on YouTube, so if you guys have any questions, you can go ahead and come into the chat and ask. We're all hanging out. It's a pretty good time, so I highly suggest that you guys come over and hang out for a little bit. Well, anyway, guys, that's going to be it for me today. I hope you guys are having a good one. I'll talk to you guys soon.